Let's get started.
Howdy, welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing, which I am trying to drop that piece of it. Okay, so best SEO podcast, the best SEO podcast. We have all those handles. And Internet Marketing Secrets, we've decided to drop that, so I need to change the bumpers. But you can find us anywhere at Best SEO Podcast. This is the Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. We've been running for 12 years straight. And we talk about everything digital marketing and SEO and, well, AI, because AI has taken over. And I thought it would be good, as we're continuing to have these AI discussions, to hold up, pump the brakes and say, okay, plagiarism, AI content generation, how are we ranking? What's going on? I even remember a publicly traded client we have early on was like 92% human generated, rejected. I was like, well, he wrote it, and the LLMs are trained on human writing. So a lot of it's going to be human written. Like, I knew this person written the article, like he knew nothing about AI. I was like, there's no way that he wrote this. And so that started an education process, AI governance process, to understand how we need to frame these things, how we need to look at these things. And I wanted to bring on Jon Gillham from originality.ai. He's got a AI checker, plagiarism checker, fact checker, because, well, there's an issue with, we were talking to the pre-interview, the integrity of the internet as a whole, as LLMs are referencing LLM sources. You said you just completed a study on how many AI overviews are referencing AI generated content.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we just did a study. I think it's a we find it infinitely fascinating to sort of understand how AI generated content is sort of proliferating across the internet. And so we look at sort of studies on where that's happening, where it isn't happening. We saw with this study, we looked at hundreds of thousands of AI overviews, and then the websites that they had cited, and then ran those websites through our AI detector. Our AI detector, highly accurate, but not perfect, but across a large data set is very telling and can be relied on for understanding. And we saw sort of 15 at times 20% of your money, your life searches citing AI generated piece of content. And so it sort of, definitely raises the question of sort of the snake eating its own tail, as some sort of visualize it. But if AI is rooting itself in AI, there's a whole world of problems that can come from that.
Yeah, the degradation of data as AI feeds itself. I would love to even go down the rabbit hole later on synthetic data and how that works. That's something that we're starting to get into and test out some different tools on. But like, I remember Elon Musk, right, bought Twitter, and then, for freedom or whatever. I think it was a great move. But I think it's clear, and I believe this to be true, he bought it to train Grok, right? And he also was tweeting about how many bots there were on Twitter. And he had to get all of that synthetic data or that AI generated data out of there, because it needs to be trained on real humans. That's also why Google did the deal with Reddit, because, real humans are providing the inputs. And I think that's probably why ChatGPT or OpenAI made it free for so many people, because they need the engagement with real humans to train these models.
Certainly any time that LLMs have attempted to do sort of a very serious effort on training on synthetic data, it has not gone well. And so the majority of LLMs are being trained on sort of all data that is all human created data. And it's sort of one of those sort of AI paradigm shifts where, for the rest of humanity, all known human text data sets have been created. The AI has sort of infiltrated itself into so many things, whether even when you don't think it has. If you're accepting Grammarly edits, then there's a little bit of AI getting added into that human text. And so for sort of the rest of humanity, any human text, any human data set will have some amount of AI in it, compared to sort of pre-2020.
I've never really looked at it that way. That is really philosophical, actually, right? Like I mean, we saw it with Grammarly and some of these other tools. SEO Surfer, what is it? Surfer,
For SEO. Yeah.
yeah, and like you can't get away from data that doesn't have autocorrect or helps you write it. So there's some level of infiltration in all information going forward,
Yeah.
right? That is like wild to think about. In certain areas, it certainly accelerated more. I mean, to set the table even more. I mean, school systems, right, are dealing with this nonstop. Like, hey, like, did you write this paper or not? And that goes even back to the question of when I was in school. It's like I'm always going to have a calculator. If I'm ever going to do any math, I'm always going to have a calculator. Why do I need to learn long division? Like that was my argument for a long time. I think school's changing. Like you're always going to have an LLM as a co-pilot to, or a sidekick to what it is you're doing. And you have now the most intelligent PhD level in every category at your fingertips with you at all times. I feel like school should not fight that, but embrace that and teach people how to think in systems. And, but I don't know the rules around the plagiarism, the fact checking. I know I mentioned to you, I've seen in a couple conferences, someone created a city and got that cited, but it was a fictitious city. And then I've seen it with fault publications on like sporting scores or something like that. It gets sucked up and ingested so quickly, and then it gets propagated, and then there's reference points. And now you're proliferating fake data. I think in the election cycles, you're going to have some it's going to get pretty bad. It's already started to get there. I mean, just to set the table more, and when we'll zoom down on, how to better rank a site using maybe AI generated content. What are the rules around this? Like, what are the guardrails? What are the rules?
Yeah. So in academia, I can talk to sort of academia and marketing. Like, so in the world of academia, I mean, as you can expect, slower to adapt, resistant. Some people being super progressive about saying, LLM's allowed. You're going to use that exactly as you said, calculator example. Others saying this isn't how brains are formed. Brains are still soft, and they need to go through this lifting of the weights of sort of writing and thinking through that process to get to to be capable of using these tools to their full potential. You don't throw somebody who has never been a race car driver in a 300 horsepower Charger and say good luck, and sort of that's the other analogy. And so I think, I've got young kids, sort of 12, 10, 8. That were lab rats for like they're lab rats for sort of as I was for the internet. And it's sort of what does that mean for education? That's a tricky question. I think if you're studying at a higher ed institution and and an LM can get a better mark than you can, you should maybe rethink whether or not the thing that you are studying is producing a lot of value in the world. And so that I'd say that's sort of
that's the big question, right? That's the big question that everybody, and then, you made me think of that MIT study that came out that showed that people are relying on LLMs for thinking, not leverage, but thinking, and their brains are shrinking or whatever, or some capacity of that. So I think any really sharp blade or whatever analogy you're using, there's two sides of it, and you have to be cognizant. So I think that's a great weighted point there, John.
And then sort of on the marketing side. So if we're talking about like, hey, you're in an organization, you function as a marketer, your job is to produce content that gets you traffic and customers and users, whatever your objectives are. I think the most important piece that I think is often being missed right now is alignment around the proper usage of AI, where it is allowed to be used, where it is not allowed to be used, and the controls put in place to be able to manage that. What we're seeing, sort of an extreme example, but we're seeing sort of interns come in with no guidance around AI usage, spinning up an API, spamming the site with AI generated content, and Cite's getting absolutely crushed by Google. That's sort of like the extreme example. But the sort of the risk owner, the business, like the business owner, who is sort of accepting this risk, is doing so with sort of no knowledge and awareness of the risk that they're accepting. And so that sort of step around alignment on where it can and can't be used, whether that's in the editorial guidelines or kind of whatever the AI usage policy that gets created. That's sort of that first step that I think is that you were alluding to, but that is often missed. And there's some significant consequences when some people are just turn loose.
Yeah, I think that executive teams and owners need to understand this technology to understand how people are using it. I see a bifurcation many times of legacy businesses that even digital marketing, even components of digital marketing, they don't completely understand data governance, right? And with LLMs, if you're connecting it up internally, maybe to a Google Drive, it can pull everything. I've heard horror stories of like HR materials getting accessed, and if you have an intern that understands how to use this stuff, sort of, right, and you're giving them the race car and no rules, and they're driving it all over the place, it's going to break some stuff. It's going to destroy some stuff. So I think data governance, AI governance is a big topic, as well as like ethical AI. Like I think there's some real societal issues of this technology seeping into everything, and everybody has access to it. Even there's some real, even personal horror stories of guardrails that need to be put on AIs. What are the big frameworks or the big bumpers that just you think everybody needs to know from an education standpoint that's maybe creating content online? Let's start with the first principle basics here.
Yeah. So I think it's important to see that like not all AI content is spam. All spam in 2025 is AI generated. And
that's a point that Google came out, and I felt like they were waving the white flag and said, hey, that's when they added to EAT, expertise, authority, trust. They added that experience component to try to say, prove it, right? Because you can just be the expert. But they said, if it's useful content, AI content is okay. So if you're, working on the content and you're linking it and you're citing references and you're adding, images, like that content is okay. Sorry, I kind of cut you off.
No. So back to sort of like that first principle, the basics of like, okay, not all AI content is necessarily spam, but if you just leave it to its own devices and somebody without controls, it'll turn into spam pretty quickly because they're optimizing for the wrong metric. And so that's sort of one important guideline. Another sort of like important guardrail, and I think you kind of alluded to it, but if you're competing on just words right now, then you're facing a challenge. And so if you're sort of in the business of trying to put out 750 words on topic X, you're now competing with LLMs that can produce sort of near top level intelligence words at near $0, at basically the cost of electricity. And that's you're going to lose that battle over time. And so you need to think about adding value beyond just the words. And so that's sort of another sort of like talk about bumpers. Like if you're viewing, AI left to its own devices, somebody left to their own devices going wild with AI will end up producing spam. Google has an existential threat to their business. If their search results are overrun by nothing but AI spam, why would anybody go to Google? They would just go to the LLM that had the most knowledge of them, which might end up being Google, but it's not going to be you 10 blue links a click away. And so there's sort of the existential threat factor that if Google search results are overrun by AI, then Google search results as we know it will die, which maybe they are now already. And so that's kind of given all of those, what I would say is sort of the guardrails to understand when it comes to Google doesn't hate AI, but hates AI being the sort of overrunning the search results and having no extra value being added.
Okay, so the first thing you said, we talk about a concept called human in the loop. Like you need to have somebody in there looking at it, checking it, like making sure it's optimizing for the right things. On the second piece, I absolutely think Google's being overrun, and they need to really do a lot better job with AI mode. I think it's pretty bad as of this moment. I used it; it's very clunky. Gemini's okay, but ChatGPT's crushing it because of the positive reinforcement or however they've weighted it. And I think that maybe you can speak to this. With these Google updates, is there a threshold of a site that's like, okay, if it hits 20% or 25% AI generated content, it's getting flagged or it's getting deprioritized in the search rankings? Have you seen anything or know any data related to that?
Yeah, so we have some data. So we're tracking the amount of search results that have AI content in them. We're seeing that rise at a much slower rate than most other online platforms. So we're seeing Medium is at like 50% of content at times has been suspected of being AI generated. LinkedIn, over 50% of long form posts were in their last study were likely AI generated. Google is likely 20% is kind of where it's staying. And there has been times where that has declined, which lines up with Google taking significant action. And so March 2024, Google did a manual, I call it like a PsyOps update, where they did a manual deindexation on a ton of sites. The vast majority of those sites had the majority of their content being AI generated. And so what we are seeing is, it's hard to say like at this percentage, you're at risk. Well, this percentage you're safe. I would say what we are seeing is that Google calls it scaled content abuse. When a large number of pages are getting published, that is something that is easy for Google to identify. It looks like at that point there is sort of a second level check on the site done, and then those sites are getting nuked. And so if you are scaling content rapidly, you are very much at risk of having a penalty in some capacity applied to your site. If you're scaling AI content, you're definitely at risk of both getting it flagged and then getting punished. How sites have been using it successfully, it's again really up to if you. I think I'd say my sense is, if you stay off the radar of the scaled content abuse and your helpfulness stays extremely high, and that is sort of shows up in the user metrics that they rely on, then you're probably kind of in that okay, maybe in the maybe okay camp.
Yeah, and algorithms are deciding whether you fall into these categories or not. So there's definitely weighted thresholds on all this stuff. How in your world how is plagiarism being viewed today? And also hallucinations by these LLMs, because they're just predicting what is most likely the next word. And I've found it to be, it's like, oh, link to this content. And like, oh, that page is not built. Maybe we need to build that page. That could be a good page. That's
an interesting. I haven't thought of that insight, but that's a great insight. Clearly, the LLM wants this thing to exist so that it can cite it.
Yeah. Well, so we're working around a term, like there's a lot of these different terms, like ChatGPT, SEO, GIO, AEO. Like I don't think the industry's decided on it. We've really gone with LLM visibility and said we're building around LLM visibility. That's ultimately what this is. This is what we're trying to do. And we built like a custom framework to do that, and a strategy on how to make that happen. And we're even working with some partners on some tools and indexes and things. And there's a lot of noise, but I think back to your point, which I do want to talk about plagiarism, but Google is dying. I think Google's trying. This is how I see it. I see Google's trying to take on Amazon with like buy right now, right? We have the search traffic buy right now. And then ChatGPT's becoming like taking over Google from a search standpoint at scale, right? Like they're just winning the at scale. So I feel like the business models are shifting. Even Google announced the big launch with YouTube. And I think that that's one of the battles is AI generated people are coming and are here. Actually, they're totally here. But the vast majority of people on YouTube are actual people. And that's really rich content that can be used a lot of different ways. And so Google and ads and everything of what I'm seeing is being pushed to YouTube and to like buy now. I don't know, that's at a high level what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's certainly evident, and I'd say, well, what's going to, if rubber crystal ball, what's going to happen with Google? We're going to see, sort of in like basic metric stuff, but it's like we're going to see reduced clicks. We're going to see increased conversion from those clicks that we get. The funnel will be collapsed. I think we're seeing that already, where people are going to be in their LLM of choice to do the research, gain the knowledge on whatever they're wanting to do, and then their transaction, they'd move to the web for transaction. Maybe that'll eventually get to to the one click situation of, okay, I've planned my trip, go book it all.
The agent economy. You're talking the I agree.
And so I think we're going to probably step our way there, and I think sort of what the world will look like over the next couple of years, maybe hard to make predictions that age well in AI, but it will be people continuing to exist in the LLMs for that knowledge gaining. As a result, most websites seeing a reduction in clicks, especially if it's superficial layer information, and then a increase in quality of the clicks that they get from a standpoint of conversions, and that, yes, LLM visibility and seeding LLMs with the knowledge that drives them towards your solution as being the optimal solution for that problem is I think definitely the name of the game.
And I know that we're a SEO podcast, but man, I also see to the agent economy. I see crypto, right? I see the money of the internet coming involved in this to be able to transact. Like I think there's just so much transformation that's happening. And to your point, predictions don't age well. Who knows where things are going to go? And I like, a lot of it is about seeding the LLMs. And I talk about right now is the opportunity, right? Right now is the opportunity where everybody's trying to kind of figure out what's happening. Google, I feel like AI overviews was like a stopgap measure to keep people from moving to the LLMs so quickly. But as people use the LLMs now, a study did just come out. I can't remember who put it out. I'll have to have them on the podcast. But basically, it showed, and this is early, that data from the LLMs were just as good, maybe slightly better, but not as much better as I thought it would be than Google itself. So I thought that was interesting. I, however, think that the customer journey is about brand management. And if people are using last click attribution, who knows, right? Things come in on an ad, but they've seen it on Facebook. They've saw it on Reddit. They've maybe used multiple LLMs to make decisions. It's hard to say what's happening and how people are making this decision. It's really about how is your brand showing up? How visible are you in these LLMs? But I'm dealing with, John, entity issues. So you can see my name here is Matt. So I'm showing up in the knowledge graph as two separate people because my titles change, my name's changed. We've changed the name of the company. We changed the name of the podcast. And there's also other people out there with my name. So there's some ambiguity around who is me or what. And it's becoming a greater and greater issue. So I'm trying to disassociate, as well as I'm trying to overlap
Right.
these titles, because my actual name is Matthew Bertram, and then Matt Bertram and Matt Bertram Live are just aliases, actually, or nicknames or whatever you want to call it. And
Right.
so understanding how all these things are connected, kind of go back to that concept of seeding the LLMs, but speaking to the LLMs in a way that they understand what you're trying to tell them, because they're doing a really great job of having to sort through all this information and give you the best possible answer to what you're looking for. So this is really important piece of the future, I think.
Yeah. No, it's for sure. We have a content optimization tool within Originality, and we are sort of adding a feature very shortly that is all about sort of LLM visibility optimization and sort of tuning that content to the sort of what has been sort of known to date around studies around stat placed high in the in the findings, quote from expert, sort of what are the features that LLMs want to ingest.
Yeah. No. All right. Let's circle back to plagiarism.
Yeah.
Okay. And start. You can start very big picture and then tighten it all the way down to like what the marketers want to hear.
Yeah. So I mean, plagiarism been, especially in academia, monster business. Everyone's been through it since sort of the birth of the internet. There's been plagiarism checkers. What we have seen, sort of both in that world and in sort of the digital marketing world, the amount of plagiarism that's happening has been on a massive decline. Because why would somebody plagiarize when they can just copy and paste and get something out of ChatGPT? And so whether it's been plagiarized and then rewritten by AI, there's certainly some risk of all of those things happening. But the Google trend is really fascinating. We actually should mention this earlier because it's kind of funny. We launched Originality.ai 3 days before ChatGPT launched. And when we launched, there was 0 search volume for AI detector. Now it's a 4 to 8 million search volume keyword a month, depending on when it's happening. Whereas plagiarism is like sub 1 million. And so if you look at the Google trends between the two, it's quite fascinating to see this sort of plagiarism checker seasonality, been there forever, growing year over year. ChatGPT comes out, AI detector takes 2 years, but now skyrockets above plagiarism checker, and plagiarism checker is starting to decline. And so I think it's still something that is worthwhile checking because there's legal risk associated with direct plagiarism as a marketer. And so it makes sense to sort of include that in your QA QC process, but the sort of prevalence of it is significantly declining.
Let's talk about this since we're around that. What are all the major laws or guideposts that people need to follow if they're trying to build a program and incorporate AI? Like, is there references that they should look at? Is there laws they need to be aware about? Like, what would be the best kind of governance policy around this?
Yeah. So it depends on the use case, and so there's certainly fair use is allowed of other people's content depending on that use case and depending on the proper citation of that content. And so, what are the best practices around ensuring you don't get your business in trouble with plagiarism? Is running a plagiarism check, identifying the sources that get identified, and then doing a manual review to see is that truly copied, or is that just your own words written the same five words that can be used by multiple people multiple times. And so I would say it's some organizations. So the rules around it for most marketers would be around sort of like fair use. 5%, 10%, 15% thresholds are not uncommon as sort of for companies to sort of require, and then ensuring that anything is properly cited. You are certainly on solid footing if you're sort of ensuring that there's 5% or less plagiarism in a piece of work, and that anytime that there is a copying or other sources identified, citing, reviewing if those should be cited or not. That gives you a pretty solid footing that you are not going to get yourself into any issues.
No, I like that. I started to think images. There's a whole business out there of you've used this image for fair, you know, it's not fair use, and they're trying to get money, and people are doing that. And now, just like content, you have AI generated images, which are completely new images. And I was listening to one of the Google podcasts, the Google Webmaster podcast, and it was saying that that's totally okay. It was like, that's completely new. That's totally okay. And then the proliferation of content that they're having to index. And that's why the unindexing is starting to happen, because the standards across the board, if everybody's, it has moved up, right? Like the standard has moved up. I would love to hear from you, maybe on the horror side of things, as well as like the awesome side of things, some case studies on how people have used your tools, and what are some of the success stories around that.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'd say kind of a horror story, and we unfortunately hear it too often. But someone, typically a website owner, will come to us and say, "Hey, our site just got de-indexed. We weren't using AI." And it's like, okay, maybe let's run. We have a website scanning feature. We feel terrible. Here's a bunch of credit. So that has happened to your business. Go run a website scan and see what the tool says. And then inevitably there's a point in time. So you can see this graph of the website's content, and inevitably there's a point in time where whether something changed in that editorial process, and all the content went from, call it, 1 post a week to 8 posts a week, and they were all AI generated. And then the site tanked. Those ones suck, because there's real pain associated with those, businesses laying off employees, livelihoods lost because a website got tanked because somebody on that team was taking on risks that the risk owner, the business owner, didn't understand. And so that's been sort of a pretty common use case that we have seen, where it's definitely a horror story when we see it.
Have you seen a threshold? I feel like Google's taking a lot longer to index stuff. I don't know the sandbox terminology, as well as the delisting or unindexing of the content. Have you seen like a point where they're indexing it, but they're not really ranking it? Like there's a lag time, and maybe they're running it through some of these systems? Or also, is there like a grandfather period that I feel like older content does better? There's some equity accrual or link equity accrual that potentially happens over time, from what I've read in the patents or whatever. So there's a lot of tools now that you can pull out from the patents, like what's happening. But I wonder if there's a way to know where that cutoff is, or where that threshold is, because new content's taking a lot longer to get indexed. And so when we're working with clients, and they usually come when they're in a bad situation, to turn it around, we want it to happen quickly, but it's happening a lot slower than we would like to see it. Like Google doesn't turn on a dime anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think core. I mean, it seems like there's more. My sense is that there's less movement between core updates than what potentially used to be the case in Google. And so, like, movements happen when those core updates are happening. In between those core updates, there's not as much movement in the results as there used to be. I believe that, like, that's certainly what we sense, and I believe that's kind of what the data supports. And so I think that lends to sort of the sense that new content getting published takes longer to drive results, because it's sort of waiting for especially if a site is sort of in sort of a downward trajectory, it takes that till the next core update to sort of see that, okay, we've addressed the EAT issues or whatever it might be.
Yeah. There's a lot of conversations, I think, at Google around trust, like levels of trust and, thresholds. And, it depends, right? That's a
Yeah,
horrible answer.
I know.
It depends. Yeah.
It's not always the answer.
What are some really positive use cases that you've seen with originality AI to help save something or solve something and caught it before maybe they got penalized by Google or something?
Yeah, so I mean, the common use case for originality is that there is somebody functioning as an editor within a marketing company, within a website writing team. They function as an editor. They have their team submit content to them, and they run a QA/QC process on that content. Some of the things that commonly happen are writers swear up and down that they didn't use any AI, runs through the tool, says that it was AI, and then they share and we have a free Chrome extension for these situations where sort of the writer says, I didn't use AI. The tool says you did. You likely did. The tools provide sort of a probability, not an absolute judgment. And then it says, then the editor takes that document, the Google document, to our free Chrome extension, which then visualizes the entire writing process. And at that point, the editor can see that the writer just copied and pasted the entire text
in the document.
Into the document, a couple formatting changes, and then got 100% AI score. Shows that to the writer, and the writer says, "Yep, you're right. I apologize. I lied. I did use AI."
So go back to that one piece. So if someone's cutting and pasting something in a document, there are markers or tokens. What are like the little dashes, right? That come out because AI can't. It's easier to put together a thought without putting together a full sentence. I think it's just. And so I think they put that. I felt like it was like a watermark for a long time. Like what are the fingerprints? What are the telltale signs that something's AI generated?
Yeah, it's an unsettling answer that I'm going to provide. But it's sort of similar to like ask John Mueller or anyone at Google, why is this ranking above this? And it'll be a bunch of sort of general platitudes. But the reality is they don't know. It's an AI. It's a black box. They can sort of understand its behavior on a large scale, and similarly, we can understand our detector's behavior on a large scale. But on any individual piece of content, why was this identified as AI or not? That's very challenging to do because the AI detector itself is a black box. We have a feature coming out called a deep scan, which looks at better understanding how the text could be sort of adjusted if it was incorrectly identified as AI, so that writers can sleep at night knowing that their work is going to pass an AI detector. And so it's a unsettling answer. There are some things that can lead to it. So if it is AI content, it is more likely to get identified as AI content. AI content, if it is highly formulaic, very structured writing, or oddly formatted, those can lead to highly formulaic, highly structured writing can lend itself to looking more like AI. Oddly formatted text will reduce the AI detector's accuracy, and then therefore will result in more times it being identified as AI.
So specifically your tool, you were saying that like it was like cut and paste it. Like is the tool looking at the number of drafts or how long the document, is that what it's looking at? How long the document took to generate the document?
Yeah. So sort of best practices are that an editorial team says, if they're using sort of the originality tooling, is that the editorial team says, writers, you must use a Google document from start to finish. And then that Google document will get a score for AI, the probability of it being AI. And then it will receive a report that shows the length of time, the number of writing sessions, characters over time, and if you see this sort of 1,000-word
Boom.
document that was
Yeah.
worked on for 2 hours with a bunch of edits and deletes, and then one
Yeah.
little section is identified as potentially AI, and you've worked with that writer for a long period of time, you can be confident that no, this you can sort of see the writer having written it. It's mostly so the detector has said this is likely human, but there's some uncertainty. You look at the Google document and that Chrome extension, and you can see them putting in 2 hours of work into that piece of content. You can be fairly confident that that is human generated. Human is in the loop, and this isn't just sort of a copy paste out of ChatGPT.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. So is there anything that my brain's full. So is there anything that we haven't covered that you think's really important for us to discuss based upon our current conversation?
I think a couple of things that I always love to sort of like make sure are sort of understood. Like I think there's a lot of this is something that didn't exist. Like from a search volume keyword, AI detectors didn't exist. A couple years ago, and there's been a lot of misunderstandings around them. They're highly accurate, not perfect, and so sort of on any individual case, they can have false positive, they can have false negatives where they incorrectly identify something as AI or human. And so that's important to sort of understand. And then the second piece is that originality in most tools provide a classification of AI versus human, and then a probability, a confidence score. So I think it was the AI detector will say, I think it was AI or I think it was human, and here's how confident I am in that prediction. That often gets misunderstood as I'm 70%, this content shows up as 70% AI, 30% human. And that's not exactly what that means. It's a binary classification, AI or human, and then a confidence score in that prediction.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. So what are the biggest takeaways or biggest tips that you can give to marketers today that are jumping in headfirst into AI because you need to be, but doing it in a responsible way?
Yeah, I think first is ensuring that the risk owner of your company that you're doing marketing for understands and agrees upon the where the AI is being used and the risks associated with that.
Mm,
So I'd say that's first. Second is ensuring you're in the content that you're producing, ensuring you're adding value beyond just words. If you're competing with words, you're competing against sort of infinite free words. That's hard. And so finding ways to add value beyond words, tools, graphs, primary data, finding a way to add. And then third, it's, I've been sort of doing SEO for long enough. It's always very, very, very tempting to find that shortcut and click a button. That has never and doesn't exist now. That makes this whole process easy.
I love that. Well, John, how do people get in touch with you, find out more about your work, your studies? They can, of course, go to the website, but I'll let you kind of share your handles and stuff.
Yeah. So we publish studies constantly, heavy focus around sort of how AI is impacting the sort of internet and how many people are using LLMs text. We have a study sort of running, tracking the number of websites that are using that, which is always interesting to see. You can see all of that at originality.ai and sign up for our newsletter, and we keep sharing. People can get in touch with me, JON at originality.ai, or find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, Jon Gillham, everybody. Thank you, John, so much for coming on. If you got value out of this podcast, please go to the platform you're listening on and leave a quick review. It would be super helpful. If it has to be AI generated, that's fine. But we really need some reviews from real people. And if there's things that you would like to hear about, or topics, or feedback, please leave that as well. We want to engage with you. This is an exciting industry. that is growing. I think it's transforming from just, SEO and a vertical, just like traffic has left, 50% of traffic has left the website and has gone everywhere else. LLMs are coming into it as well. So share this with somebody that you thought was valuable. Like it, tag us, Shiko us, share, like, follow. We really appreciate it. If you want to grow your business with the largest, most powerful tool on the internet, which I guess is, well, bigger than the internet now, maybe soon to be, LLMs, reach out to EWR for more revenue in your business. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to post more. We are launching our LLM Visibility certification very soon. Jon, thank you so much for coming on. Until the next time, everybody, my name is Matt Bertram. Bye-bye for now.